for the fish. So long, and thanks for the fish. So long, and thanks for the fish.
Is what they said to Jesus.
Welcome to Folie, Deux, the podcast where we rate and rant all things spooky. But really, it's just movies.
Only movies.
God, it's still just movies.
Just movies.
And speaking of movies, what movie did the spooky spinner land on this week?
We landed on Cabin in the Woods.
My God.
My gods.
My gods. What are your first initial thoughts of Cabin in the Woods? Have you seen Cabin in the Woods before?
I've seen it a few times before. I like the movie. I thought it was a good, newer, spooky movie. One of those, like, horror comedies. I thought, the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, that was surprisingly better than I expected.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be really shitty.
Yep.
But I guess I don't even know if I knew that it was a horror comedy going into it. I don't think I did.
I definitely didn't.
So that I thought was really good when I first watched it.
I like the fact that I didn't know. So like it made me, I got confused, especially at the beginning. I'm like, what is happening?
It took me by surprise.
And then you see all the tropes and stuff to begin with. And
Yep.
You're like, oh no, wait, what?
It's one of these.
Is it going to be one of these? And then it progresses and moves on. And it
Mhm.
actually is a lot more, smart. It's more smarter than it seems.
Yeah.
And the further you go within the movie, the more you realize that I think there's a lot thought out in this movie.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty aware.
To a degree, but
Yeah.
it's all within its own world.
It's not just a small plot. It's like you said, it's a much bigger plot that the twist is something that I didn't realize was coming. I was like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Which
No.
I don't really know how I feel about it, I guess. I'm still kind of working that out. The ending.
So, Cabin in the Woods was filmed in 2009, but it wasn't released until 2011, and I think it had to do something with Paramount. There was something going on with Paramount where they couldn't release on time, so they had to delay it a couple of years, which is funny because you have like Chris Hemsworth in it, and
Mhm.
this is very early Chris Hemsworth too, at least at the time of filming of this
Mhm.
movie. So he looked like a little baby.
As much as Chris Hemsworth can look like a little baby.
He looked like a little baby, and this was the Chris Hemsworth before Thor too. So you can even tell, like when he was, when there was a scene where they jump in the water, in the lake, and
he looks like a buff guy, but like a normal, like
he wasn't
like
Thor
attainable.
built. Yeah, he wasn't the Thor body that we're used to seeing. So it came out in 2011. The director is Drew Goddard. He also directed Bad Times at El Royale. And then from there, Drew, I guess he just barely got this gig too.
For Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah. And since Cabin in the Woods as well, I guess since Bad Times, I'm assuming Bad Times is after this.
Yeah.
He's mainly been like a executive producer for movies like The Martian. And then like TV shows like Lost and
Never seen it.
Daredevil.
Never seen it.
I've seen Daredevil. And The Good Place.
Never seen it.
I've never seen that. But so I guess, and then the cast too, like there's some people that I've seen before. You have Richard.
Chris Hemsworth.
Oh yeah, Chris Hemsworth. He's in this. Kristen Connolly, I feel like I've seen. She looks like someone I've seen before, but
she was
I can't.
Dana in the movie.
She was Dana in the movie. I can't remember specifically what movie I've seen her in, but she looked very
big, watery eyes.
Yeah.
It always looks like she's about to cry.
Yeah, same.
What?
So then you got Marty too, who's the stoner of the group, which he was great. I loved.
He was the best part for me.
Yeah, he was definitely the best. And then I'd say like second best is the duo.
Yep.
So the duo of Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford, who played Sitterson and Hadley. Those guys worked really well together. It was really cool to see.
Yeah.
And I mean, both of them are pretty recognizable in different ways. So
yeah.
So I guess I kind of want to read the caption of this movie before we get started.
The like brief description.
Yeah, the brief of it. So 5 friends go for a break at a remote cabin where they get more than they bargained for, discovering the truth behind the cabin in the woods.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
That doesn't tell you much, but
let's
just maybe get into it.
Let's get in the movie.
Okay, so
what the fuck is this movie?
For those of you who haven't seen it, the first kind of shot of this movie is we see Hadley and Sitterson are in this kind of break room. It looks almost like a government building. So they're in there talking, they're walking down a hall, and this woman comes up to them flustered, talking about how Stockholm has failed. and you can tell she's clearly bothered by it, but the two men could give a shit. They're like, whatever. Japan has a perfect record. We're second, so we're good. And then boom, we're hit with the title screen. So, and it's just like this really loud, like kind of scream, and then the title shows up.
Captain of the Woods.
Yeah. Well, okay.
But they like purposely wanted to make people think that they sat down and were watching the wrong movie, and had convinced the studio that people wouldn't walk out of the movie. So like they felt like the starting of this movie was a risk because it wasn't what people had signed up for.
I wouldn't say it's that big of a risk because it doesn't last that long. It's just like a couple minutes.
But I wouldn't see it and just be like, what the fuck I'm leaving.
I don't know if I've ever walked out of a movie.
No.
I wanted to walk out of King Kong. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep for that one. So we come in on a college town and go into this college house, and we have Dana and Jules comes up to Dana, who is looking pretty melancholy. She's looking at a few sketches of this like older man, and Jules comes like kind of popping in, and they mention how Jules has newly dyed blonde hair, which seems like a big change for her. And then they talk about how Dana had clearly had a relationship with a professor that didn't end well, and she needs to kind of get over it and take the weekend to just kind of have fun and hang out with Jules' boyfriend's friend. And so then kind of at that moment, Jules' boyfriend, Chris Hemsworth, pops in, and he is talking to the girls, telling everyone like, oh, get ready. My friend Holden. I cannot remember the names. Holden is coming. We're all going to like pack up in the car and we're going to head off to my cousin's cabin. And there are a few moments in it that are, they're telling to the characters, because we have Kurt, who is talking to Dana, who's taking like an economics class, and he kind of touches on like, oh, don't read this big book. Actually read this book because the professor that I took the class with will think you're really insightful. And so you can tell like he's pretty intelligent.
Yeah.
And you can also tell that Jules is kind of a goofball in a way too.
Yeah.
She's not like super self-absorbed. She's kind of funny. And then
she's witty in her own way too, or like when she's talking with Kurt.
Yeah, she has these like witty moments and stuff like that. So then we're taken outside to, we have this like rundown,
like it's almost like a rambler.
It's like, yeah, it's a rambler. And as they're all kind of getting in, Holden comes in. He is, of course, this really attractive, like, again, buff college guy. And so they're kind of trying to push Dana and Holden to He's like Kurt's together. Right-hand guy. Yeah. And then as everyone's packing in, we have Marty come up, and he's driving his own car, pulls up kind of next to them. Like essentially a station wagon. It's a rundown station wagon, but it's completely filled with smoke. Yeah. And he has this giant kind of, it looks like this metal bong that he's smoking out of. And they're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, don't worry. And he collapses it into this handheld mug, which is, I really like it. And as someone, like a travel mug. It's a little travel mug. Yep. And he actually makes some comment. He's like, cops will never arrest a man with a giant bong in his car. Well, one of my friends he got pulled over on his birthday, going to his birthday party with a massive bong in the back. It was like a well-known bong throughout like our friend group. And so that theory does not hold up. Yeah. So they're all set, super excited. So I want to touch back on the best prop in the whole movie, which was that thermal, the coffee thermal, collapsible bong, the thermal coffee mug / bong, was a fully functional mug and bong as portrayed in the film. I love shit like that. Yeah, and the prototype cost $5,000 to make. Oh my god. Well worth it though. It's very memorable. It's very, and very useful. Very useful in many different ways. Mm-hmm. So they jump in the van or the Rambler, and they hit the road. I think at this point we're taken back to the guys' main headquarters, and clearly their whole building or department is setting up for something big. They
Yep.
have all these kind of controls. They have these big screens in front of them.
Different departments that they're talking to.
Yeah, different departments that they're coordinating with. And of course, we have this new guy that comes in that they're kind of explaining stuff that's going to happen. They're like, you have to be ready for anything.
And he's there for security.
He's there for security.
Yeah.
And he's, one of the kind of characters that like, I've been, top in my class, graduating, and I've been like a top Marine and this and that. And so like, he's, the best of the best.
Yeah.
And they're like, you don't know shit. You're going to find out. Be prepared for anything. And while they're down there, they are talking to, I believe, another person from like the chem lab or something, where she mentions how they've been drugging these kids because they are seeing these kids on their screens, on their monitors. They're like, oh yeah, well, we were able to work some dye or some chemicals into the hair dye for Jules, and we've been dosing Marty's stash for when he smoked. So again, we don't really know what's happening, but these two worlds are very connected and something's going on.
And I'd say too, like the tone of the movie is you're just like, it's very upbeat when you're meeting the whole crew and everything. And it's very like teen movie-esque tone. And then you're contrasting it with this like processed setting where they're talking about all these different things too. And they're relating that to the same group of people who are just going to go out to have fun.
Yeah, it's a very carefree group versus kind of this.
I'm here to do my job. What's the job?
Yep. This
everything's ready.
All these
we
systems
good?
In place.
Yep.
Cut back to the kids. They're driving. They come upon this old gas station, and we were talking. And the looks of it. First of all, there's a rickety close sign on the first door. Then there's a second door that has a close sign. If you drove by this place, you're like, oh, that's clearly that used to be a gas station. It's a junkyard now.
It's clearly drive by, don't stop.
I would not look at that gas pump and be like, that's fully functioning. Yeah. But they have to stop anyways. So they stop. They're looking around. They end up meeting the owner of said gas station, who is this creepy, kind of like hick, grungy guy. He has a bunch of chew in his mouth that he's like spitting right by their feet and insulting them. And he's just being very ominous. And then he insults Jules by calling her a whore. And the kids end up being like, he's an asshole, let's get out of here. So they keep heading to the cabin, and we see them driving along kind of this ravine. They are going through this kind of like rocky tunnel to get to the cabin. It's
kind of curves like an elbow macaroni.
We haven't eaten yet.
No. Feed me. I'm gonna have macaroni and cheese after this, actually. Tell you.
And as we like see them driving, they're going into this tunnel. The camera spies this bird that's flying, and the bird hits something invisible, like this invisible electric wall.
Yeah, it's like a force field. It smacks into it and dies.
And just kind of fries and dies. And then, of course, we're taken back to the facility, and we see Hadley and Sitterson. God.
It's Sitterson.
I'm going to remember one of these days. We're taken back to the facility. They actually get a call from the creepy gas station guy. And this is actually a really funny... Mordecai. This is a kind of a funny part that I loved, where Hadley puts him on speaker, and he's like, the lambs have been led to the slaughterhouse, and like their blood will be spilt for their sins, and he's just going on. And these guys in like white button-up shirts and like
white collar,
they're just sitting there laughing at him. He's like, am I on speakerphone? That is so rude. His tone completely changes. Yeah.
Well, and that and just like him and Hadley too, just going back and forth, and Hadley's is like, Mordecai, how's it going? And
Morty.
Just prior to that too, he was just like, I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
No. And then he has to, and then he's like, Mordecai, baby.
But basically, Mordecai tells them, he confirms that the kids have passed by him, talked to him, and they are headed to the cabin.
Which, I mean, I'd be like, Mordecai, just tell me what I need to know.
Yeah,
I don't care about
bing,
all this.
boom, bang, So they arrive at this
they have this whole facility. Do they really need Mordecai to call and tell them that they're coming?
They shouldn't.
They should know when someone's coming onto their area.
To call. And I don't know if they actually need him to call, because when he does call, they're like, I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
Like, can take a message. So I think it's just him really loving his part.
Oh, yeah, he definitely does.
So the kids arrive at the cabin, really kind of run down, rustic. cabin. They walk in.
A tiny cabin from
From the first view,
front.
it looks pretty small. And then we see them go in and it looks like it grows on the inside.
The cabin reminded me, for those who are fans of Evil Dead, that cabin.
Well, especially with the cellars.
Yes.
So they're going to their rooms, unpacking. Holden his room is next to Dana's, and he is looking around his room, and there's this really grotesque old painting of this lamb or this like cattle that's being slaughtered, and like the innards are being pulled apart. And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not gonna hang out
Not
here
today,
all weekend
Satan.
with this. Not today, Satan, but tonight." So he's like, fuck that. He goes to take it down, and then the camera kind of pans up from the picture, and we see Dana just kind of staring.
Yeah.
It looks like at this window that he has into her room. He realizes that it's a two-way mirror. And he's like, oh, this is so fucking weird. He ends up telling everyone, because he doesn't obviously want to seem like a creep, which is... should not be.
It almost seems like a point in which they're just like, look how chivalrous he is by
not being a creep.
Yeah, but even though he's still like,
they make a point to be like, wow, that was really nice of
exactly.
you. That was so decent of you. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding?
He even couldn't stop himself. He's like, it was hard.
Yeah, he's like, I had a tough time debating.
And I get that was like, I'm assuming that's,
they're just trying to really hit home that like he's a good guy, and like, and then he tries to kind of like joke around with it. But
but if you really think about it, you're like, this should have just been a thing. That should have been a normal thing where you're like, yep, hey, by the way, I can see into your room.
Hey,
stop
changing. Anyway, so they end up switching rooms, and that's kind of like the first weird thing that they notice in the cabin. The guys in the facility, we see them too, where they're saying like, oh, we need a situation change because their rooms changed. Mm-hmm. So clearly they're planning for something to happen based on all of these kids, and like already things aren't technically going to plan.
Great.
So they all put on their swimsuits. They go into the lake, and everyone except for Marty.
Marty doesn't jump in the lake. And apparently the reason why he doesn't is because he's fucking jacked. Marty is jacked in real life. In real life. So yeah, like during the lake scene, he was the only person who didn't jump in. And it was because he was noticeably... He was like better looking than all the other guys, which they established like all the guys are, they're athletes, are in shape. They even show with Holden, because he takes off his shirt after they switch rooms, and he's like fucking ripped too.
He's ripped. You have Chris Hemsworth it's before Thor, but he's still ripped.
Exactly. And so he doesn't jump in because the filmmakers, they're like,
this doesn't fit with his stoner. This isn't going to fit
at all with the stoner. We can't have him like outshine the athletes. So they just had him keep his clothes on and just smoke some more fucking weed while he's there.
Which I think too, like, I wish they kind of would have played with that a little bit more as to like why he isn't as affected in certain situations later on in the movie.
But yeah, the writers joke that he was like ripped muscular Jesus. And that's the reason why, because it would have ruined his character. And
we noticed that he's wearing multiple layers in the whole movie. So it's not like he's just wearing like one shirt where you can like, if it gets soaked with blood, you can see his muscle. Like they clearly tried to pad him a little bit.
During that whole time, I'm like, I just want to see what he looks like. I want
to see his body. Exactly, yeah. Same. Anyways, so they're of course having like fun at the cabin. We're taken back to the facility. And we have everyone who's kind of like all of these employees who are getting ready for the action to start. And we have a bunch of people placing bets, and they're all saying like, okay, what do you want to happen here? Like your department, tell me what you guys want. I'll put it on the board. The new kind of security guard who was there is just standing in the background. And I think the Chem Lab girl, she talks to him. She's like, oh, it seems pretty harsh, but it's just a way for us to kind of blow off steam. So we're obviously led to believe that something terrible is going to happen.
Something's going to happen. And they were actually really careful on not giving away too much and saying too much. Yeah. Like, so what's your bet? Is it going to be this or this? Or you never hear someone say what their bet is.
Exactly. Because like Ronald, the intern, who was like, hey, here's my bet. And he hands him a piece of paper. And he's like, no, maintenance already has that.
Yeah. He's like, of course maintenance has it.
They have it every year. So Anyways, we're taken back. It's later in the night. The kids are drinking at the cabin and they're playing truth or dare. They dare Jules to like make out with this taxidermied wolf. And she's clearly playing into this very like sensual, sexy character. And if you notice on the other people's faces, like Marty and Dana, especially, who know her well, who have known her for a few years now, they have these confused looks on their face at certain times because they're like, this is just acting kind of weird. And then we also have Kurt, who is it seems like he's being harsh to Marty and Dana.
Yeah.
And even Holden too.
Mm-hmm.
So
and with that makeout scene too, they actually like I got trivia up the ass today.
Yay!
Yeah. So the wolf too, the tongue was
I could see the tongue moving. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works.
They could take out the tongue. It was detachable.
Yeah.
And it was like made out of silicone. And they even put like I think it was either like a sugar like powderish.
I was gonna say, did they flavor it?
They did, yeah. So there was sugar on it, just to make it easier for her to make out with
I guess, yeah. Because I mean, just looking at that thing, I could just like taste the hair in my mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Or like the dust.
Anyway,
so if you feel like you see dust or anything, it's probably just like the sugar granular or whatever they use to sweeten it up.
Thank God.
I like to. Marty calls it
a moose. Yeah, he dares Jules. Fuck? He's like, he's constantly smoking throughout this whole thing. And he's like, Jules, I dare you to make out with that moose. And it's just like this very vicious looking wolf. And they're like, how high are you? Yeah. So that was, Marty's, I think, one of my favorite characters. Oh, yeah. And then it's Dana's turn. And as soon as she's kind of about to go and she says, dare, a cellar door pops open.
And I love the quip too. Like Marty has great quips. In this movie too. Mm-hmm. And Kurt says,
saying what all like every audience member is thinking.
Kurt's like, they're like, what was that? And Kurt's like, maybe it was just the wind. And he's like, I don't know what kind of wind that was.
Yeah, he's like, because that makes sense. Because it's indoors. Because it completely just like springs open, scaring everyone. And the cabin is already pretty creepy anyways. And all of a sudden this door flies open. So of course they dare Dana to go down and check out the cellar. So she brings a flashlight. She goes down there. And as she's looking around, she gets scared by this picture that she sees, which is just a portrait of a girl. She's just scared by the face. And so everyone comes down and they kind of light some lanterns and they're looking around and they're clearly each start to get mesmerized by some different object. So Kurt has this big giant conch shell. Jules finds this necklace on a mannequin. Holden is what does Holden look at?
Holden's looking at the music box.
Oh yeah, Holden's looking at this music box with a ballerina that's swirling around. And right before Kurt blows right before it looks like Kurt's gonna blow the conch, he sees this like weird metal ball that he starts playing with too. And the whole time Marty's kind of like looking around and he's like, I don't think we should be down here. Like, let's maybe go. And then of course he ends up getting kind of infatuated with this film reel. And right as it looks like, Jules is about to put on the necklace and the song for the ballerina is going to finish and Kurt's going to figure out this puzzle ball.
Everyone's about to do the thing.
Everyone's about to do it. And you have the suspenseful music. Yeah. Dana, who has been looking through this old journal, is like, wait, everyone, like, listen to this. And so she starts.
Stop what you're doing.
Stop everyone what you're doing. And she starts reading a passage from this really old diary. And it's from this little girl, Patience, Buckner, I think is their last name. Yeah. The diary is just talking about how her family basically kind of has their faith in pain. And they talk about how her mother was screaming throughout the night until her father cut her open and stuffed in the coals, and how they were taken to this black room and they were like murdering people, this and that. It's like all of this really grotesque stuff. And then, of course, there's a passage in Latin that is in the diary that says, if someone reads this, we will be brought back to fulfill our faith in pain, or it's something along those lines.
Ixnay Ernal J.
It's in Pig Latin.
Yeah. They're like, I don't speak Latin. It's Pig Latin.
Oh.
Don't we all speak that?
And so she starts reading it, and Marty's like, okay, I'm drawing a line in the fucking sand. He's like, don't read that Latin. And then Kurt insults him.
Why read the Latin?
And Kurt's like, fuck you, you're being a pussy, like, read the Latin. And and Marty hears a faint whisper, read it out loud. And he's like, what the fuck was that? And he, of course, he's the only one that can hear it. Yeah. No one else does. And Dana then reads the passage out loud. And as soon as she's finished with the last word in that passage, we're taken quick to a shot outside, and we see a hand rise from the ground. And then everyone at the facility kind of, you hear people cheering, people booing and stuff like that. And we hear Sitterson. He yells out, okay, like, Buckner zombie family, like redneck family, like they're the winners. Maintenance and the intern Ronald are the winners.
You hear the maintenance guy?
Yeah. So, and then we're shown the full board of everything that was on there, from just plain old zombies to unicorns to werewolves. We have a
whole list of monsters.
We have Hadley come up to Sitterson, and he's like, oh God, he had the conch right in his hand. He's like, I want to see a merman so bad. And Sitterson's like, don't worry, the cleanup's always a mess. He's like, you'll see it someday. Yeah. And so then we're taken again back to the kids at the cabin. Jules is I wouldn't say it's a striptease because she's not actually stripping down, but it's
essentially,
it's kind of like that. She's like getting in Holden's space. She starts to touch Marty too and dancing around him. And this is again where we see Marty and Dana look at each other like, what the fuck is she doing? Happening? Yeah. Kurt grabs her and he's like, we're gonna go outside and we're gonna like pound, baby. It's just like, he's being very
pound.
Yeah, he's being very like machismo. So they go outside, they go running outside, and Marty kind of pulls Dana aside and he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, something's not right here. This, again, reinforces how these characters have changed since going to the cabin, because Marty talks about how Jules was never an airhead and she's never been this kind of overtly sexual person to all of us. And when have you known Kurt to be a meathead? He's a sociology major. He's on full academic scholarship and he's teasing other people for being smart or having glasses.
The more I thought about it, that I guess I never really realized how much they focused on that. And maybe not, I wouldn't say like they focused on it a lot in the beginning.
No.
But like even with Jules, just the fact that she like dyed her hair and she's asking her and she's like, is it okay? Is it all right? Just the fact that you see that she's insecure about, or, afraid of what other people think about like what she, about herself or something. And then you see that juxtaposed to her at the cabin and, like being slutty and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's being very extrovert instead of...
Right, and we're not relying on just hearing Marty being like, they're not who they were.
I think it helps, and I know you don't love this in movies, but I do think it helps in this movie because the first time watching it, I didn't pick up on those themes in the beginning. So the second, third time through watching it, you can clearly see like, okay, so they're trying to set up the characters here. But having Marty just kind of ask Dana about it and be like, what the fuck is going on? I think helped me understand the characters better in a not so like obvious way, because he's already paranoid and he's talking about conspiracy theories and like, we're fucking puppets, man. Yeah. Pop-Tarts.
That's such a good line.
What was it? I'm trying to remember. He said
puppeteers, and she's like, puppeteers, and he's like, Pop-Tarts?
Yeah, because he's talking to Dana, and he's like, there are fucking puppeteers around. She's like, puppeteers? He goes, Pop-Tarts? Did you say Pop-Tarts?
Pop-Tarts?
You have Pop-Tarts? Which is, I don't know, it's funny. His delivery is good. He goes to his room, and of course that leaves Dana and Holden together to kind of...
I keep wanting to call him like Sheldon.
Maybe it's the glasses that he puts on.
It's a nerd.
So, and of course, like they're supposed to kind of connect, and we're taken out into the forest where Jules and Kurt are kind of like drunkenly making out as they're walking through the forest. We see the guys in the facility, Hadley and Sitterson.
You got it.
Hadley and Sitterson basically adjust the environmental elements. So they're putting pheromones out with this mist. They're turning up the heat so that Jules isn't cold because she mentions how it's chilly. They're adding some moonlight to this like mossy area to basically make it a perfect situation for her to show her boobies.
And by the way, they were able to make that whole like setting in a perfect situation because none of those shots were shot outdoors.
Of course they're not. There's way too much moss.
I know. I still think they did a really good job though with that set.
Yeah, I liked it.
I never like thought all this is.
It looks too fake. Yeah. No,
fake.
I think they did a decent job with it. And so as they're making out and they're basically about to have sex and Jewel kind of takes off her top, there are a bunch of people in the facility watching this happen. Hadley kind of clears them out. And he's like, okay, we got to get to work. Get out, guys. Like, just go do your own thing. And the security guard is kind of, you can tell he's uncomfortable. And he's like, what, do we have to see her take her top off? Sitterson and Hadley both mention how this isn't for us. This is for someone else. And so as soon as she takes her top off, she is on the ground and she sprawls out her hands. And the camera kind of goes along with her hand in the moss, and then all of a sudden she's stabbed in the middle of it, right in the hand with this rusty knife.
I want to say too, before we get into all the stabbing and like this is the start of the gore. I thought like the gore in this movie looked really good.
For the most part,
the practical effects in this movie were great. The visual effects, not. I wouldn't. It's they're
already starting to really age.
There were shots like that crow scene that we said that we brought up. It looked really bad.
Yeah.
It just like tracked really weird when it moved across the screen.
Some shots of blood pouring down into kind of like this funnel, and that looked really, really bad.
Yeah, it looked really bad. But everything else, like the creatures, when you see them up close, not necessarily the CGI, but the creatures themselves, they look great. And the person that so I should say Heather Langenkamp, she was Nancy in A Nightmare on Elm Street. She served as one of the members of the actual like makeup crew.
Oh, that's cool.
That created the different nightmare creatures. Her husband is also a sound effects artist. So pretty neat.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up just because I was like, I thought all of the effects in this movie looked really cool, except for the CGI effects.
Yeah, some of those they didn't hold up well. I remember when I first saw it, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! I love this scene." When like you see all of them,
it doesn't hold up very well.
So, anyways, we are taking back. Jules is stabbed in the hand, and we see she's stabbed by this like really gross looking, they just look gooey or something. They look bleh. They look mushy.
Mushy.
That's what it is. They're mushy looking zombies, and
like they've been fermenting and.
In the ground. So she of course like freaks out. Kirk freaks out. He saves her from that specific zombie. And then we see that there are a bunch of other zombies that come. They end up
it's a whole family.
It's a whole it's the Buckners.
It's the Buckners.
Add the theme song here.
The Buckners.
So eventually, the struggle ensues. Eventually, they get a hold of Jules and they kill her right in front of Kirk, who they have kind of held back.
To watch. Like they forced him to watch.
Forced him to watch.
Specifically put their arms around his neck just to have him stand there and watch. Brutal zombies.
Brutal zombies. The Buckners, man. They love their pain. So Kirk does get away. We're taken back to the facility and we see Sitterson and Hadley are saying this prayer, something along those lines. And Sitterson
like kisses.
He kisses this little charm almost. It's like a symbol of.
It's got like it looks like it's not a.
You see the symbol later on, but it's like the circular.
It's like a created symbol for this movie, I'm assuming, unless it's based on a real symbol. There's symbols everywhere, but
Hadley gets up, and on the back wall there are these big kind of levers, and there are 5 of them.
Yeah.
And he pulls down the first one. The camera's taken down to this whole kind of gear shaft where it breaks this vial of blood, pours down, and it pours down into this engraving and kind of starts to trickle through this outline. We're taken back to the cabin. Marty he's reading Little Nemo, and if anyone knows that, it's a weird anime story that's definitely racist.
It's the worst. We watched it like
we tried to watch it
for nostalgic reasons for you, but I say for you.
No. I remember
that movie is associated with you.
I remember watching it as a kid and being like, "Oh my gosh, like let's watch again." And we didn't even get through half of it, and we had to turn it off because it was like, this is overtly racist.
It was terrible.
It was bad.
I was so, like, it was racist, and I was so tired of just like of fucking Nemo.
Well, it was anime. There are a lot of annoying characters in anime. It was like kind of anime. It wasn't really anime. Anyway, so Marty's reading this book and he all of a sudden hears again that whispered voice that tells him to go outside.
Right.
And he kind of argues with it because he hears it very clearly and he's like, what the fuck's going on? He's like, I'm not your puppet. And he gets really mad and he's like, I'm going outside. So eventually, so he does go outside and he passes Dana and Holden making out on the couch. As he's outside and he's just kind of looking up, he sees the sky and it's completely black. And he mentions, he's like, he's like, why don't I see any stars? And then as he kind of looks back down, Kurt basically slams into him. And we also see from behind Marty was coming Patience, the zombie little girl. Kurt like knocks her down. He clotheslines her as he grabs Marty and runs into the cabin. He's of course covered in blood, all disheveled, and he slams the door shut. Everyone freaks out and he ends up telling them Jules is gone. Something got her and there are others that are coming. And he doesn't explain right away because he's just so frazzled. Yeah. Is the tamest word I can find.
Frazzled.
Is frazzled. But he basically tells everyone, like, we have to board this place up. Like, we gotta get going. Dana is, of course, confused because she's like, what are you talking about? Jules is gone. What the fuck do you mean? Then they hear a knock on the door and Marty and Kirk both try and stop Dana. Well, she thinks it's Jules. She answers the door and it's this giant.
It's the big boy.
It's the big boy.
It's a big boy Buckner.
It's a big Buckner. And he has this bear trap, basically, that he's been using as a weapon.
It's such a weird. It
doesn't make sense as a weapon to me because he swings it around like, it's not a mace, is it?
Yeah. I know what you're saying with the chain ball.
He swings it around.
The ball and chain.
Old ball and chain. So he swings it around and at one point he hits Kirk in the head and just kind of like knocks him out. He also uses it to like attach to people's backs and drag them. So it's kind of weird.
But just the fact too, because he does that and then he has to walk up and he can pull it off of him. He doesn't have to like try to like get it. He's obviously going to tear it off of him, but he still has to like sit down and like, open it up again. Pry it open. You're just like, just use a blunt object at this point. Stop using that.
Yeah. So the zombies have kind of surrounded the house and they're attacking it. The kids inside are able to barricade the front door and the windows. As they're about to walk through the house, Kurt mentions how they need to stick together. But of course, the guys at the facility spray something into the air.
Yeah, they're just like, fuck.
Yeah, they're like, oh, this idiot. This genius.
Let's make him an idiot.
Let's make him an idiot. They spray something in the air, so eventually Kirk says, we need to split up. Right. Yeah, he's like, we'll cover more ground. And again, you see Marty's face in the background. He's like, what the fuck? Anyways, they all go.
Which is true. You're just like, cover ground in this tiny cabin.
It's a little cabin. So they each go into their own bedrooms to try and board up the windows. And as soon as they go into their own bedrooms, the doors slam shut and lock.
Which obviously was their
plan that they wanted. Yeah. They're all trying to, like I said, board up the windows. Marty's in his room and as soon as the door slams, he kind of turns around and as he's just turning around, he knocks down a lamp. And as he looks at the broken lamp, he can see a tiny little camera that's been hidden in it. And he's, again, is paranoid as fuck. And he's like, what the fuck is this? And he's looking at it. And then we're shown the monitors in the facility and we just see his big face. And he's like, oh my God, I'm on a reality TV show. Yeah. And the people at the facility are like, why the fuck isn't this, like, why aren't our drugs working on him?
Yeah.
So they're kind of confused because what they have been doing hasn't been working altogether with Marty.
Yeah, and at that point too, he's saying that, and then they're freaking out. Hadley's like, I gotta call the chem lab. Sitterson was like, nope, we got a Buckner.
Oh, yeah.
That's when the Buckner comes in.
Yeah. Because Marty's leaning against his window. Of course, a zombie comes in, tries to grab him. And I believe that he pulls Marty. Yeah, at this point, he pulls Marty out of the cabin, stabs him in the back, and he drags him down to the grave that they popped out
Marty
of.
does fight. He takes his trusty
he is able.
coffee mug,
Yeah, he's able
bong.
to grab his like travel mug bong and like
Gets a good
smack
swing.
him. Which that of course that thing is worth $5,000 because that thing does not dent.
That thing is fucking sturdy.
Yeah. But eventually the zombie drags him down into their grave and you hear this like slashing.
Yep.
So then, of course, the zombies are breaking into other people's windows, but Holden is able to get with Dana because, if you remember, their rooms are next to each other and they have that two-way mirror. So he's able to break the mirror. He pulls her into his room. And as they're propping up like a dresser, a bed, all of the furniture in his room against the window, they see another kind of trap door into the basement. They're able to call to Kurt and tell him to meet them down there. They go down, end up fighting with, another zombie. But eventually they all meet up together and they're able to get outside of the cabin and run into the Rambler. Oh, I did miss this part. So right after Marty dies, they were talking to someone in the chem lab and they had said that they dosed all of Marty's stashes, but they accidentally missed one. And that, of course, is the stash that he's been smoking from. And then they mention how it's been like kind of immunizing him from all of the other effects that they've been doing. So all of the like stuff that they've been spraying into the air, and in a weird way, he's basically been protected by a cloud of weed.
I think too, something to note that I don't think we brought up in the beginning was as they were leaving in the Rambler, the camera pans away, but then it pans up to the top of a building where this dude is just like, the birds have left the nest. To me, that's like, how are they getting in, adding all these things into these people's shit? You have someone that like that, maybe that is a person that was putting stuff in, like, obviously he probably didn't do it for Marty, but he probably did it at that building for them. And so I was thinking about that too. I'm like, how did you do it? They're just like, yep, we just did it. Okay. But I mean, once we see that guy, I'm like, okay, I mean, you show that it's possible, I guess.
Yeah. But of course, as Marty, after we hear the slashing noises, again, the kind of lever is pulled for Marty, the blood breaks from the vial, and it's poured down into this kind of big stone tablet with this outline. The surviving three, Holden, Kurt, and Dana, run into the Rambler, and they are driving, and they're trying to get back to the exit. Well, as they're driving and they're heading towards the tunnel, the people at the facility, Hadley and Sitterson, realize that something has gone wrong because the tunnel should have been blown already. Right. There should have been basically no access for them to get back onto the main road. And as of right now, the tunnel's clear and they're about to go through the tunnel.
Were they not planning on using that place after these sacrifices?
Yeah, maybe they just clear it out.
Jesus, this sounds a lot of work.
No. But so of course, like, they're trying to figure out what happened, but Sitterson is racing, like, he realizes we have to blow this tunnel now, otherwise they're going to get out. So he runs to whatever department is in charge of it, and they tell him they never, like, communication from up above has been disconnected. There's been an interruption, and they never got the signal to blow the tunnel. Right. So it just didn't happen. Of course, at the last minute, he knows what wires to cross to make that explosion happen. And Sitterson saves his day.
And like, at first I thought, like, maybe he came, like, maybe in order for him to get to where he's at today, he was in that department a long time ago.
There are a couple instances where that's the case, and people that you do not, like, I would not know shit to, like, 2 wires. I can't wire a car.
No.
I can't even fix Christmas lights if they're blown.
You can't drive a car.
Hey.
Oh.
Okay.
No, that bothered me too. That just seeing him do that and just like fiddle around with wires. Yeah. He's like, I know exactly what to do, and he's like pulling out drives and shit. And you're like, what are you? What?
Yeah. How is he stepping up this whole department? That they're like, their job is to explode shit and make shit work.
Yeah.
How does he know? Anyways, of course, as they're in the tunnel blows. They're able to get out in time before it basically all collapses.
What if they would have died?
Well, that's what I asked at one point. Yeah. And I think if they would have died especially because you find out that they're supposed to die in a specific order. And if that didn't happen, everything would be fucked.
Yeah, that's what I guess. Yeah.
And throughout this kind of whole thing, we're also shown monitors in the facility of these other places around the world and these other situations that they're clearly trying to, I don't want to say replicate, but they're trying to have this system work at other places around the world. Yeah. So whatever this ritual or sacrifice or whatever it is that needs to happen, they're trying to ensure it around the world, and a lot of places have failed so far.
So it only needs to happen in one place?
Only needs to happen once in one place, but they have to make sure it happens.
Right.
And of course, like we said in the beginning, it's just them in Japan. So during this kind of whole thing, we're shown that Japan, their kind of simulation isn't working right either. And it looks like they're going, like, it's in a classroom, and it's all these little girls that are being kind of scared by this demon, but throughout this whole thing, the girls are basically exercising.
They learn how to exercise it through ritual, and all is good. It's funny because one of the failed ones that they were showing on the screen was actually like an homage to The Ring and the little.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more evident that the U.S. has to succeed, otherwise something terrible is going to happen because everyone else has failed and Japan isn't pulling through.
Japan, I think I saw like Berlin or something too. Different countries around the world. Yeah,
the kids are able to get out of the tunnel in time, so they're not hurt. But they have this kind of ravine that they would have to cross in order to get out of the area that they're in, and it's obviously too big for anyone to jump. But of course, Kurt has his dirt bike on the back of his Rambler. What they think is the best option, which I think is shit, because they could have. If you look at this like road, it's cut into the side of this either like giant cliff or mountain or something. They could have. I would have rather free climbed. Sorry, I would have rather free climbed up that kind of cliff that's going, because it almost like plateaus at the top is what it looks like.
You're talking about the cliff that exploded.
No. Because if watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. But
I just watched it.
On one side of the road.
You're talking to them now.
Yeah, shut up. On one side of the road, you have the cliff drop off that just goes down into darkness. You basically can't see where it bottoms out.
Yep.
And then on the other side, you have like the other kind of part of the cliff that keeps on going up. Well, in some of the shots, it looks like the cliff isn't terribly high. It's not like a mountain. So for me, I would rather try and climb that. And it's very jaggedy. So it looks like you could have some pockets. I would rather take my shot at climbing that than jumping over a ravine.
I don't know. I probably would have just tried to find a different way around than to try to risk my life climbing. Doing something that I don't normally do, because that is very hard to do.
I'm not saying it's easy. No, absolutely not. But I would rather, I know I couldn't do the jump.
And I don't think they show like how far away the cabin is from
the road. Yeah.
So I probably would have just done what later is suggested and just go through the woods and track through the woods. Well,
so anyways, Kurt gets on his bike, and it looks like, because Dana had said, like, are you sure you can do it? And Kurt mentions how he has done bigger jumps before this. So he...
And the director, too, when they were filming this part, I don't know when this remark happened. I feel like it happened after the fact of the movie, after the fact of Chris Hemsworth. But apparently he had said, like, while filming this scene, that's when he knew that Chris Hemsworth was actually going to be a huge star because of that scene and how he delivered and everything, which he delivered very well.
I think he did some good deliveries in that scene.
But part of me is just like, it's very easy to say. Like, I worked with Chris Hemsworth. He's a superstar,
baby.
Yeah.
But so Kurt gets kind of this like running start. He jumps his bike. He's kind of halfway through the ravine, and I hate this shot because it just doesn't hold up. It doesn't look great.
No.
And as his bike is in the air, he hits that invisible wall. Yeah. And he, again, like gets kind of electrocuted and just keeps falling down.
Ragdolls.
And every time he or some object meets with this wall, it kind of lights up with spark. So you can see him hitting it all the way down, and like at one,
just to show you how far
he's falling, so you can see it kind of light up. Of course, Dana and Holden are screaming in confusion and pain. They're like, what the fuck is going on? And they get back in the RV, and Holden is driving. Dana's asking him, like, why are you driving back? What plan do we have? And he's kind of as level-headed as you can be, but he's kind of the level-headed one in this position, where he's explaining to her, you know what? I don't know what we're going to do. We're going to keep on driving if we have to. If the road ends, we're going to just drive through the forest. If we can't drive through the forest, we're just going to, keep on foot. Walking. And he kind of pleads with her, like, don't drop out now. I need you.
Yep.
Of course, as soon as he says that, he gets stabbed through the throat because a zombie has been in there the whole time.
How did they not search this while traveling or anything like that? Where was the zombie hiding?
I don't know.
It wasn't like a little baby zombie either. It
was like a big uncle zombie.
Yeah.
So the RV goes, of course, off-road, and it actually goes into the lake because they've driven so far that they're closer to the cabin. Drives into the lake, crashes in there. Dana's able to escape, and she crawls up on the pier. And so at this point, all of the 4 other members are considered dead. Their blood has been spilled. All the levers have been pulled. We see Dana as she's trying to, like, breathe after she's gotten out of the water, laying on this pier. And Hadley and Sitterson are kind of able to relax, and they're like, okay, we've done it. The security guard asks them, he's like, well, she's not dead. I thought everyone has to die. And they explain to him that she is holding the position as virgin, and she's kind of embodying that character, I guess, for this ritual. And for this ritual to work, everyone else has to die before her, and it's up to the big guys, whoever they are, to decide whether or not she lives or dies. But the main point is that she has to suffer. And we see Hadley just kind of watching her on the monitors, being like, it's so weird. Like, after so many years, you get numb, but I want this girl to pull through. There's something about her. And then he kind of looks over to the side, and he sees some people coming in. He goes, yeah, tequila is my lady, my lady. And it's just a bunch of other departments who are coming to celebrate. Job well done with margarita.
We did it. Party.
And as we're kind of seeing everyone in the celebration, we also see Dana still up on the monitor, and we have this giant zombie that comes, who they thought they had killed, but comes up to her and is just like beating her up, throwing her around. So you have this really horrific giant monitor playing this out while everyone is like cheersing and having drinks and taking shots. And then you have, of course, some people who are congratulating them, like, oh, you're so masterful. Like, the way you orchestrated this is so great, to Hadley, and he's, eating it up. But
and he's like, yeah, I just wish.
He's like, it would have been
I just
cooler
wish there was a merman.
Yeah, he's
I
like,
just wish we did it with a merman, but
it is what it is. He's like, it would have been cooler with a merman, but whatever. Well, then their celebration is interrupted because this red phone that's on the wall rings, and Sitterson and Hadley immediately look at each other. They tell everyone, turn the fucking music off. Hadley answers the phone, and he is talking to someone who's clearly above him.
Yeah. And
he is confused because the person on the other line is telling him something didn't go right. The ritual is not done. Get it done.
Get it done.
Someone is not dead. And then we're taken back to Dana, and as the zombie is like kind of throwing up his weapon again, it's stopped by our travel mug bong.
Yeah.
And Marty's back. Eventually, like, Marty and Dana are able to take the zombie down. Marty grabs Dana, and she's completely confused because she thought that they all thought Marty was dead. He grabs her, pulls her into the grave that he was in. They're almost in this like concrete room, it looks like, and this door kind of slides open from underneath, and you can see this very like this metal kind of room with these glass sides, and he's like, this is an elevator. He's opened up a whole panel that he can
he's
rig.
Doing the same thing that Sitterson did.
Yeah, but he's like, I can't make it do anything else. He's like, but I think I can make it go down. And she asks if they even want it to go down, because he realizes that whoever is orchestrating this had sent these monsters up to them.
Right.
they figure they have no place else to go, so they jump in the...
Go down.
They go down. They jump in the elevator and they go down. And as they're going down, it's like they have, again, these glass walls, and it's completely kind of pitch black as they're going down, but it also stops and levels off at certain areas. And as it stops at certain areas, you start to see all of these monsters.
Oh, man.
Which I love. I love this part so much.
It's always like the best. I've learned to like, since rewatching and everything, I'm maybe not learned, but I tend to appreciate I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the characters now even more so than I did, because before it was like I remember watching it just because I really wanted to see the monsters. But yeah, the monsters are they're so cool.
Yeah.
And Josh Whedon and the director Joss was actually a writer for this movie. But they both created over 60 different types of monsters. Specifically just for this movie. Yeah, I know, right?
I really wish there was like a monster index for I just want to know.
Yeah, but I loved it.
It was great. And so we're like shown all of these different things. And then they also see among these kind of random supernatural scary monsters, we see a ballerina who has like no face except for these like really grotesque, jagged teeth, like mouth and everything that's like distorted her face. We also see this big, and I say he kind of looks like Pinhead, but
he's definitely inspired.
He's absolutely inspired by it. But we see this big giant guy who has no expression on his face. He has these big black eyes, and he has all of these kind of saws sticking out from his head, and he's holding this metal puzzle ball. And Marty and Dana put it together that whoever's doing this made them choose who was going to kill them. And so they get super pissed off, and the camera kind of zooms out from them screaming into this big giant area with all of these different elevators with all of these monsters. I love it. So of course in the facility, everyone's freaking out because they've realized that the elevator shaft that they used to bring up the Buckners has now gone down, and they can't find Marty, they can't find Dana. Eventually, they're able to locate them in the elevator that they're in, and so they make it so that the elevator basically opens up to their facility. And as the elevator opens up, we see a different security guard right as the door opens up, pointing his gun, yelling at them to get out, or just for Dana to get out, which Dana and Marty are confused by. Well, what I didn't mention too is that, so Marty, when he was brought down into the elevator, he obviously had killed the zombie, and there's like basically this big dismembered pile of zombie with this zombie arm that's kind of like crawling around. And as the security guard's pointing his gun, the zombie arm kind of grabs his ankles and startles him to the point where Dana and Marty can disarm him and knock him out. They grab his gun. So they're running. Knock him
out quite easily.
They do take him out quite easily, which you would think if they're hiring people for that job, like they should.
All it takes is just to throw someone up against a wall. Like it wasn't even like a very violent throw. It was just kind of like two people pushed him up against a wall, and then his head just happened to like smack the back, and he's like, "Oh, I'm out."
Yeah. So Dana and Marty, they come and they kind of see all of these different elevator doors that can open up, and this kind of control room at the end of the area that they've just walked in on. Then all of a sudden we hear this voice come over the intercom, and it's Sigourney Weaver's voice. She's in this, which is great. I loved it. But she basically tells them, you know what? Things shouldn't have gone this way. This shouldn't have been dragged out as much as it was. She's like, I can't imagine what you've been through and the pain you must be in. She's like, but this is bigger than you, and Marty has to die. Basically, so they're like, what the fuck? And then of course they can hear these this kind of crowd of this big crowd of guards that are kind of running down one of the hallways. So they run into the control room, and Dana ends up pushing kind of like eject all.
Was it Dana or was it?
Yeah.
Yes, go on.
She pushes this big red button of like eject all and
all monsters.
Eject all motherfuckers. And all of the elevator doors ding open, and all of these monsters just like come swarming out. You have a giant cobra, you have a ghost, you have everything imaginable and unimaginable.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is great. And of course, they just completely slaughter all of the guards.
Yep.
I'm trying to, and
it didn't look great.
No,
I'd
because
say,
they
but it
had
was all CG right there.
Yeah, they had a lot of CG stuff there, which didn't hold up so much.
And my biggest thing with that, like I love that too, but my biggest thing is like I don't know if it has to go with the movie specifically, like the tone and the way it is, but just the fact that like you have one button that lets all the monsters in your whole facility go.
Yeah.
You don't have any kind of other like, we need 16 different keys to unlock one thing, to take another thing out, twist this knob.
Why would you need that function anyways?
Cough to your left, press the button 3.5 times, and then you unlock a monster. You know, it's just like...
Why?
See, you want me, I should be doing stuff like this because
I don't think anyone would want you to do that.
I'd be like, I mean, you only have to do it once.
No, but what? Yeah, it doesn't make sense why they would even have that button.
No, that's a pretty big deal.
But it's a big flaw.
I think that's a pretty big flaw.
It is.
But
Dana and Marty look out of the room that they're in, and it's just the pools of blood.
And real this time, because they cut to this part, and it's not CG anymore.
Yeah, it's not CG anymore. You have all of these like scattered bodies and dismembered bodies. It looks great.
Yeah,
I really like it. And then I think guards come up too, like another round of guards come up, and then you hear the doors ding again.
Yep.
So we have another round. But anyway, so Dana and Marty they're kind of cornered, but they're eventually able to get out through basically this hole in a wall that a monster has kind of created. So they go through a hole and try and kind of escape that way. We're then taken to the control room that Hadley and Sitterson have been in the whole time, and their door, their big solid like guarded door is being broken down.
Which you know that door does not stand a chance. Like seeing some of the monsters, all the monsters you see.
Well, you have fucking ghosts.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, whatever. But so they're monsters that get through. And they attack the guard who has been there the whole time with them. The guard ends up taking out a grenade and kind of...
Because he was compromised. Like he was completely... his intestines were out and everything.
Entrails were out trails.
Yep.
So he grabs a grenade, pulls it just to kill the monsters. Sitterson and Hadley are kind of blown... They're not hurt, but they were scattered across the room. They're scattered across the room, hit, and kind of just stunned at this point. And
although that's not how grenades work, but anyway.
I don't know.
That's also like a pet peeve of mine. Just seeing grenades in movies and how they like explode and stuff, and you're like, that's not what they do.
It didn't look. I will say, it didn't look like a normal grenade.
I could see that. I guess.
And so Hadley's stunned on the ground, and there's all this kind of smoke that's around the room from the explosion, and he's just kind of trying to get his bearings again. You can see he's really disoriented. And then you can hear this kind of like slimy thing moving. And he's kind of looking, and eventually the thaw or the dust settles, and we finally see a merman. So, which is the thing that Hadley's been wanting to see this whole time. Of course, he delivers a great line of, "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." Just something stupid like that.
I love to, I'm pretty sure he only brings it up twice in the movie, and then that was the third time. So in threes. And I enjoy that.
You like threes?
That's how comedy works. I like that in the film though.
So, of course, Hadley's dead, the security guards. So really we just have Sitterson left. He is able to go down into kind of this bunker that he has been trying to put in a code for. He is able to get down there, and he starts running down a hall, and as he turns a corner, he's stabbed in the stomach, and he's stabbed by Dana and Marty, who conveniently are down there. I was going to say,
how did they get down there?
We don't ever see how they got down there. But they're there. And so she stabs him, and Marty they're both looking at each other, Sitterson and Dana, and they're just kind of in awe because I think she obviously expected it to be a monster, and it's the worst monster.
The monster.
Man!
Named Sitterson.
Sitterson. And so Marty tries to pull her away and have her keep going, and Sitterson stops him and says, "You have to kill him."
Yeah.
He goes, no, stop. Kill him. And of course, like, this is the second or third time that they've heard something about Marty has to die.
Right.
So,
and you were like, he could have just still said, kill Marty.
Kill Marty. Kill Marty. The fool.
Kill him. Kill That guy
Yeah, I don't know.
who was standing there the whole time looking at him being like, watching this other guy being like, kill him.
Like, fuck you.
Fuck you, dude.
So they end up going down this hallway that takes them down these like big stone steps into this giant room.
Yeah.
Where it has this big circular stone platform, and we see the symbol that was on Sitterson's necklace or whatever kind of pendant that he was kissing when he prayed when Jules died, I believe. Yep. And we see it kind of engraved in the stone. And then we see on the wall these 5 tablets that are the outlines of these like humans, but they're specific personalities or characters. So we have the whore, which was Jules. We have the scholar, who was Holden, because he puts on glasses.
He put on glasses
at one point, and then Kurt calls him an egghead.
Yeah.
We have the athlete.
I think did they go through that much with Holden in regards to him being the scholar? Besides the Latin,
he was able to read Latin, but so was Dana.
Right.
She's the one who read it. Yeah. I mean, when Dana and Holden are sitting on the couch, he's reading through the diary and reading Latin.
I just feel like they did a better job with Kurt.
They did a better job with Kurt. They did a better job with Mark. They did a better job with everyone.
He felt like the weakest one out of everyone.
Yeah, they glazed over Holden. Yeah. So yeah, we have the athlete who was Kurt. We have the fool who was Marty, and then we have the virgin who is technically Dana. And at one point, when she again is making out with Holden, and she kind of is like, I don't really want to go any further. She's like, I've never really done. And then she stopped herself and she's like, that's not true. She's like, I have had sex. I don't know why I said. So it's like kind of those weird moments too.
And she brings that up every once in a while. It's like, virgin. Maybe not every once in a while. It's
the part that's
that part and the part that's coming up.
So they're kind of looking at this and figuring out that they were all supposed to represent these characters. So each one of them was supposed to represent someone in this ritual. And then we see out of nowhere, because she doesn't come down the steps, that Marty and Jules came down, and there's no other steps or entrance or exits. She just appears. We see Sigourney Weaver come up in like this power suit.
Yeah, she's wearing a power suit.
And she comes up on this platform and she's talking to them, and she's like, yeah, you're right. She's like, we've been doing this ritual for as long as man has been alive. She's like, this helps keep our world going and society stable. Yeah. And she's explaining that this ritual has to be done, and it always demands youth. And she explains each of the characteristics that they were supposed to embody. Dana also points out, she's like, because when Sigourney Weaver says, you know, you were the virgin, Dana questions it and she goes, virgin?
Yeah.
No, I'm not a... And Sigourney Weaver says, well, we work with what we have, which I think is a cop. I don't they didn't really explain it that well. They just kind of thrust these characteristics on them. But she goes on to explain how the reason they're doing this is because of ancient evil gods. Ancient evil giant gods that live
essentially at the core of
pretty much. And they need this ritual, these sacrifices, to be done in order to appease these gods and keep them sleeping and not destroy the earth and all of humanity. Marty is listening to this, and he basically tells her to fuck off because he's been in so much pain, and you killed my friends, how dare you? To which she says, your friends or all of humanity? Do you want to die for humanity, or do you want to die with them? Because as soon as these gods wake up, everyone's dead. Which, I mean, let's say that is true, which I would, at that point, if I was in that situation, I would probably fucking believe after seeing redneck zombies and ghosts and shit. I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're talking, and Dana has the gun, and she's explaining this, and Marty's arguing with her on why this shouldn't be a thing, and like, maybe we need things to change, which this isn't change. Everyone dies. Yeah. Like, it's the end of human civilization as we know it. And so Dana starts to slowly point the gun at Marty, and he turns to her and asks what she's doing. She just looks at him, kind of apologizes. basically she's about to pull the trigger. And to Marty looks at her, and from basically behind Dana,
the stairs.
From the stairs, we see this big werewolf coming, and he's like, yeah, well, I'm sorry too. And then the werewolf attacks Dana. There's a struggle, like she loses control of the gun. There's a struggle for the gun between Marty. He ends up kind of knocking her away.
He knocks her away.
He knocks her away. And he ends up shooting the werewolf that was on Dana, saving her for a little bit, I guess. And then he is still struggling. Dana's sitting there kind of bleeding out. And as she's sitting on the steps, she sees Patience Buckner, who followed
her way.
She found her way back down the elevator that was already down below anyway. So she had to get it to come back up, go back down, go all the way through the facility. It's ridiculous. So Patience Buckner comes walking past Dana and has this little hatchet, and Marty's able to kind of flip Sigourney Weaver as Marty's on the ground, and when Patience swings, she hits her, and Marty's able to push them both over the edge of this circular platform.
He kicks her off, and then
Patience is just attached
continues
to
to hold on to this the hatchet.
The hatchet.
Either way.
So Marty kind of crawls over to Dana, and it's like a few minutes to sunrise, which is basically when their time limit to complete this ritual was over. And he lights up a joint and is like, I really wanted to see these giant evil gods. He's like, that would be pretty wild. They're like, yeah. And then everything just starts crumbling. Yep. And then we see this giant hand come out
and boom.
And slam its hand down.
And end the movie.
And say, goodbye. And that is how we end the movie.
The last trivia I have is the body count for this movie, if anyone's interested, is 6,873,741,054 people, which is the world's population in 2009.
Oh. I was like,
when the film was made.
So
we did it. We made it past the movie, or through the movie, I should say. So with that, let's jump into IMDb reviews and see what people thought about this movie. The ratings for this movie, for male and female audiences, our age, males rated it a 7.1 and females rated it a 6.6.
Huh. That's okay.
Interesting.
I'm kind of surprised. I thought it would be rated higher
by
females.
Great. Let's go to review number 1. I understand it's not for everyone, and I might have a slightly twisted sense of humor, but to me, this is pure cinematic pleasure. 10 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
I just can't get enough of this film. This year alone, I've already watched it 4 times, and the year isn't even done yet.
What was that, like February?
Yeah. It works on so many levels and is so much fun. The way the conventions of the horror genre are turned upside down, while at the same time, the story transcends the mere spoof and satire and becomes something new, entirely original. Just wow.
Just wow.
Does it turns the horror genre upside down?
No.
I feel like it's a very like tropey thing to say about movies. Like they took this genre and turned it upside down.
I think the fact that they were like aware of the stereotypes for horror genres. This person's like, oh my God, how innovative. I mean, you could say that about Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's true. It turned everything upside down. It's clear this film was a labor of love. Every tiny little detail was cared for, and the writing is just phenomenal. The dialogue between the office clerks alone are beyond priceless and offer such great, effortless performances by Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford. 2 absolutely fantastic character actors, by the way. This movie has simply everything, and the last 20 minutes offer the biggest payoff I've ever seen in a film. A rare treat and a true pleasure for film geeks like me. Thank you, Josh and Drew. 10 stars out of 10.
Oh my God.
This is a little bit too much of a...
That's, yeah.
Fanboy, fangirl, fan person.
Fan person, yeah. It's too much praise. It's a good movie. I like the movie, it, but I don't... It's not... Calm down.
Okay. Review number 2. I don't get it. Most disappointed I've been in a while. 5 out of 10. I've not been this disappointed in a while. Had I known I was coming to watch a movie that was making fun of horror movies, I wouldn't have wasted my time or my money.
What?
Or more money. Original as it was, it lacked three major things I expected. Horror, which was replaced with comedy. Good acting. I was sorely disappointed the characters didn't seem that into their roles. 3, some sort of intelligent story based on hype and previews. I don't think they replaced horror.
No.
I actually think they did a pretty good job when it came to... I find like comedies or, spoof comedies tend to do things really well.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it has to be because of the pairing within comedy or if it's the people that are doing it. I
would assume that their idea of like lack of horror is because you have those lighter moments that you're not scared the whole time, or there's not enough suspense for them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I wouldn't say that completely ruins a horror movie for me, but this is it's not just a horror movie, this is a horror comedy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I felt bad for none of the characters that died. None of the characters really developed throughout the movie. The story was just terrible, with too many unanswered questions, and the filmmakers chastised the review groups prior to releasing the film for asking about a sequel.
I'm sorry, what?
Asking for a sequel? Did they watch the movie?
Well, everyone dies.
The end of the world.
Yeah. But like
Exactly.
maybe like a prequel.
But I think they're just like, what are you talking about? The movie is it over. Ends.
Yeah,
everything
there's
ends.
no.
Why?
Well, I'm sure people were probably curious of like the evil god. They wanted to see the evil giant gods.
And I'm sure the filmmakers probably like, yeah, so do we.
That'd be like 5 minutes.
Yeah. They'd be like, what do you want us to do? Like have them dress up in a Godzilla suit and walk around? Yeah. That would be pretty funny. Some more about the reason that they needed a virgin, jock, whore, fool, and scholar would have been nice to know. Why they were sacrificing to gods could have been more clear. Why they were involving all the other countries would have been nice, but mostly explain this to me. Which one of the Asian children in the classroom was the whore, the jock, the fool? I'm assuming at the stage in their lives they were virgins and scholars.
Okay, I like this one. I asked that same question, which there are certain elements of this review that I think are very legitimate.
Yeah. I never found myself startled during this movie, not one jump. I feel cheated that I went to a horror movie and realized it was poorly done comedy. I don't get it. I must be wrong. Everybody else seems to disagree with me. Well, I mean, I wonder how they're posing, this whole reason why they don't like it or something like that. I don't remember what advertisements were for this movie.
See,
I don't remember hearing what the movie was supposed to have been.
Trailers before we watch. Yeah, I think we should watch the trailers before we watch. Mainly because I love trailers.
But then again, I'm not going to blame a movie based on the trailer either, because they're not necessarily they're not related to what is happening in the movie. Like the movie, they create their stuff, and then you have marketing who's going to create the trailer afterwards. And sometimes with bigger franchises,
but think about Suicide Squad.
But I know, but that's the aesthetic of those movies. You can tell that they're like, oh, this is going to be great for a trailer, so we got to put it in there. It sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, that was it.
Okay, well, I will say that I don't have as harsh of a review for this movie, but I do think some of the points that they made are valid. I can see how they would argue that the characters weren't super well developed. I can see that.
It's a quick movie too. It's about an hour and 20 minutes or so.
It's a very quick movie. I don't think all of the acting was great. I liked Marty. I thought Jules was good. I didn't love Dana. I didn't love Holden. And there were parts that I really didn't love Chris Hemsworth, Kurt. But I mean, whatever. So I mean, I understand that. And then I guess I would have, like they had mentioned, I would have liked to learn a little bit more of the backstory of the gods and why they demanded these specific roles. And like we had said when we were watching the movie, who's the virgin? Who's the whore? Who's the like, who are those in the school, like the elementary school children scenario? Yeah. And does that have to fit with every single every single country that's trying to complete this ritual, because
You have different cultures and different sets of stories and how storytelling is done. And
I don't think it's real. I don't think it's reliant on storytelling. It's because it's the gods, right? You have to like embody certain characters, but these characters do fit. I'm sure, like at some level on a global scale, whether or not they're called these specific names, I don't know. But I mean, they did I thought they explained it decently on why they were doing it in different countries to ensure that the ritual was complete. But I don't know.
I didn't think the acting was that bad. I thought the acting was fine. Okay. I didn't care for some of the characters, but that doesn't mean I think the acting was bad. If I'm comparing this to like slasher films, because they're going for that aesthetic in different points, I can definitely see that they casted people pretty well for certain roles.
Yeah.
But I also liked some of these characters, as in like who they were, was very different from the typical characters that they are supposed to be. And so I thought they gave it just another dimension to it, which I thought was really nice to see. I think the story is kind of odd. And the beginning of the movie too, they just show you like different sacrifices and blood and stuff like that, just to give you like an idea of what's coming. But that's really...
the first few seconds, they just show these images of like old whatever drawings and illustrations and
Aztec,
religious. So it's all different cultures and countries of sacrifices that have happened.
So let's go to the third and final review, which is also the longest. So pedestrian, lackluster, presentation of moderately interesting ideas. 1 out of 10. This latest critical darling comes from Drew Goddard and Josh Whedon. Josh? It's Josh. But Josh, a writer-director team with an extensive background in television. This review is not sufficient enough to get to end right here, but I'll soldier on anyway. With about a jillion comparisons to Wes Craven's criminally overrated Scream, there was no reason to have high expectations for The Cabin in the Woods. Still, I at least expected a mindlessly entertaining carnival ride of gruesome a la Demon King or Planet Terror.
Right.
My expectations were too high. The reason for the Scream comparison stems from the fact that both films exhibited a self-awareness of cliches and conventions of the horror genre. This comparison, however, is not entirely accurate, as lame a film to ever masquerade as a horror film as Scream is. The Cabin in the Woods' brand of stupidity has more in common with tripes such as Mars Attacks or even the Brady Bunch movie.
What the fuck?
Wow.
First of all, these references. Huh.
They're coming with references.
Yeah.
This is a film that looks and feels like a slightly sinister entry to the abysmal Scary Movie franchise. Another horror comedy that's...
What?
Wow. No.
Those are very different tones.
They're extremely different. I was actually going to bring up Scary Movie, too, in the sense of like the whole comedy horror thing. And there's a big difference between the two.
That's more... I would do like Scary Movie as just a comedy.
It's a straight comedy with...
Yeah, there's... making fun of horror, but I wouldn't market it as a horror
this
comedy.
movie, like it's comedy horror or horror comedy, because if you think about it, like essentially all of the monsters that we see and the amount of time that they put into everything is really good. And like if you just did a movie with those like zombie hillbilly family, that could be a movie in it itself.
Well, that's I think too is like if you take out the funny bits, you have a horror movie.
Right.
Whereas Scary Movie, if you take out the comedy bits, you don't have anything.
You got nothing. After another horror movie comedy that's never scary and never really funny, to call it convoluted or contrived would be a massive understatement. Its flimsy excuse for a premise is like a house of urine-soaked cards.
Jesus Christ.
Jesus. The first act setup plays every bit as cliched and predictable as any cut-rate teen slasher movie in the past 30 years. The only difference is the inclusion of a vast network of puppeteers, two in which offer constant explanations or excuses for said predictability.
I mean, they do say in the movie, at one point, someone looks at like the monsters and he's like, this is like what nightmares are made of. And she's like, no, this is what the nightmares come from. So, I mean, they're kind of basically explaining like, all of our scary shit that we have in this world is because of what we have here in this area.
Basically, it's all a charade. The kids are being a charade. The kids are being lured into a cabin as part of some laughable ritual of human sacrifice to appease some angry ancient gods. This charade of trite horror genre mediocrity is the only thing that keeps them from rising up and destroying the world. In other words, the story is rotten because the ancient ones have wretched taste.
Okay.
Yeah. For reasons far too ridiculous to bother getting into, things don't quite go as planned. The kids figure out everything. To make a very dumb, bloated story short, the world ends. There's a bloody finale involving about 20 or more simultaneous references of horror icons of the past, but don't think for a second that it's worthwhile.
I loved it.
Wow. Lord Fornicus, the obvious reference to Hellraiser Pinhead, looks like something out of an SNL sketch. No. I think it was done really well.
I think it was fine, but
wow,
I wouldn't go as far to say it was from an SNL sketch.
As someone who knows how to do theater makeup,
go on.
Come to think of it, the whole thing feels like some cut-rate comedy sketch show rather than a horror film or even a horror comedy. Damn. Watching this thing, one gets the impression that everyone involved was striving for mediocrity.
Oh my fucking God.
This acting is soap opera level. The direction uninspired. The writing, an avalanche of sloppy dialogue and dumb forced humor. People still think stoners are funny?
Hell yeah.
This is going to be like a person who like finds like they'll look at one piece where it's like, this is funny. And then they'll be like, do you think that one thing over here is really funny? You're like, that's not the joke.
I feel like this is the person who will get blackout drunk every weekend and then get really pissed at someone who smokes a little bit of weed.
Yeah.
They're like all high and mighty and be like, that's disgusting. Give me that Coke.
Give me more cool. The camera work typically lets film each scene from every conceivable angle and hope it cuts well together. The special effects barely a step above what you'd see in an Uwe Boll film. This person is Folie. That's some Folie references.
I don't know. Jesus, how long is it?
It's a little long. The self-referential is just an excuse to unleash a torrent of awkward, distracting exposition through each and every character's dialogue. You expect someone to look directly into the camera at any moment, throw up the sign of the horns and proclaim, dude, it's a freaking horror movie.
Get your
I don't know where they're going with this.
Jesus Christ.
This brand of lazy storytelling is no different from what the storytellers proclaim to be ridiculing. The people who defend the technique by saying that was a point are simply defending mediocrity. Cliches, ineptitude, lack of imagination cannot negate cliches. Ineptitude and lack of imagination. Nor can they be excused. Consider films like Kill Bill and Grindhouse, which managed to pay homage to trash cinema, yet still be incredibly entertaining and original.
I haven't seen Grindhouse.
Kill Bill.
Yeah, I like Kill Bill.
I do too.
But I mean, I don't know
if it's a fair comparison.
I don't think it is.
The Cabin in the Woods is still the same boring, same old even with the reality TV show of the gods slant. All in all, the movie thing is about as clever, funny, and scary as a fart joke.
Okay, first of all, we're reading the wrong review for the two of us because I love a good fart joke.
Ooh, some have surmised that the story is actually a kind of metaphor for the horror film industry or horror fans' expectations or whatever. If that's the case, then Cabin in the Woods isn't just lame.
They're arguing that something is pretentious.
Merman, the single star is for you and you only. I mean, I'm not going to say, like, I don't think this person's, like, dumb or anything. They
just really hated the fucking movie.
Yeah, they just really didn't like the movie.
Which I have my issues with it, but I don't have that many issues with it.
No, it's a lot of issues. All right, let's get into the final reviews. Jessica, what is your final review?
I think I'm going to go with probably like a 5.9, just because I've watched this movie a number of times, so the rewatchability is a big one for me. I like the horror comedy genre. I think it's entertaining enough for me. I think the practical effects hold up pretty well, and I don't know. I like like you said, the chemistry between certain characters. The duo of Hadley and Sitterson, I really liked. So
Okay. I'm going to give it a 6.4.
oh shit!
Much of the same thing. I like the acting a little bit more than you, I'd say.
Yeah.
After watching this again, I liked the characters more. I still love the all the monsters and stuff and all the detail that they put into everything. I think one of the biggest things too that we brought up too was that button and how that really just like that, or like how everyone knows how to wiring and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's just like very, very annoying. You know,
those are kind of big gaps in the story.
We got to get this moving.
Mm-hmm.
So it just happens, and I hate that because I'm like, there can be a way. There's that, and then I don't know. I feel like although they did connect with it's a global kind of thing. To me, it just feels kind of weird that we're just here at this cabin. I know it's a cabin in the woods. And then we're just inside the facility, and then that's it. Mm-hmm. It just feels like the world could be so much bigger. Mm-hmm. And I know it is the world that we're talking about, but I wanted to see more, which I'm sure is a great thing.
I would have liked to see, because when we start the movie and they say, like, it's just us in Japan, I would have liked to see, even if it was just on the monitors, other places and what their mm-hmm. rituals looked like.
And the fact that they're able to just get straight to the center of this whole operation, straight from the cabin mm-hmm. and go down, like, and the fact that they found mm-hmm. their way to the center of where they need to be, or I guess they don't need to be in there, but to the center,
the heart of the story.
Exactly. And you're like, you got there, I guess.
You see that going through a wall.
Time-wise, I don't understand mm-hmm. where all that's coming from, but so things like that bother me, mm-hmm. but subjectively, I really enjoy mm-hmm. the movie. So, I mean, I'd recommend it to people if they want.
Yeah, I would really recommend it to people.
I'd say just don't take things too seriously.
Understand that it's a horror comedy.
Right. That's it.
And shut up about
it. Thank you so much for listening. We put out 2 episodes every Monday and Thursday, so make sure to look out for them. God damn it. We post updates regarding new episodes on social, or at least we try, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Mm-hmm. And you can search for us by
FAD_podcast, FAD mm-hmm. podcast. Those are kind of our primary handles.
Mm-hmm. And on YouTube too, if you want to see us over there.
The boob tube.
The boob tube. We are everywhere. Just remember that. We're everywhere. And as always, let us know what movies you want us to see.
Yeah.
Give us and to put on the spooky spinner, especially. Yeah. And we did do Watch With Us.
We did a watch along for Thanksgiving, mm-hmm. which we'll maybe try and do again for Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, we got a decent amount of movies to choose from. Some are really shit, and some are probably a little bit more well-known, I would say.
I think we should do a shit one again.
Probably. Yeah. So with that, adieu to you, Jessica.
And Folie, adieu to you.
Blow the man down, and pray pay attention and listen to me. Give me some time to blow the man down. I'm a deep water sailor just in from Hong Kong. Give me way, blow the man down. If you give me some